kind of tight. Hey, you could have told me that was an option all along.
You needn't worry. Both of us looked away.
I didn't. Wait. We're good. Skeleton Knight in Another World is surprisingly great. Skeleton Knight in Another World by Enki Hikari began as a web novel back in 2014 and has subsequently gone on to publish 10 light novel volumes, an 11-issue manga, and as of earlier this year, a 12-episode anime. The series follows Ark, a hardcore gamer who, after falling asleep while playing his favorite MMO, wakes up in a fantasy world within the body of his skeletal avatar. Accepting that he is now trapped for the foreseeable future, Ark sets out on an adventure that sees him battling cataclysmic monsters, befriending an adorable spirit beast, and thwarting a nation's destruction. While this might sound good on paper, I actually find the plot to be the weakest aspect of Skeleton Knight. The first 3 episodes of the show present the overarching story as one of political intrigue featuring assassination, dubious alliances, and outright villainy. This isn't necessarily wrong, as all of those things are present in the story, but I feel like they're all quickly swept under the rug in favor of Ark's adventures with Ariane. While the pair's primary goal of setting all of the elven slave free does often intermingle with the political side of the story, their inclusions often feel like an afterthought, as Ark just happens to stumble across them rather than actively seeking them out. It also doesn't help that, in my opinion, the prince's plots don't really make any sense. Docarus allies himself with the Empire, aids in the slave trade, sets monsters free on his own kingdom, and plots the assassination of his sister for seemingly no reason. I'd assume it has something to do with attaining the crown, as these things usually do, but I honestly have no idea. In a similar vein, Prince Sect kills both his brother Docarus and his sister Uriarna in hopes of attaining the crown, but as far as I know, he was the first in line anyway, so there was absolutely no reason for that, unless their system of monarchy works entirely different than ours. The only politically inclined character that really makes any semblance of sense in this story, in my opinion, is Uriarna. After the emancipation of the elves, she journeys to speak with their elders in hopes of upholding the peace treaty. On her way there, an attempt is made on her life by not one, but both of her brothers, with Sect succeeding. Afterward, Ark figuratively stumbles across her corpse and decides to resurrect both her and a plethora of her attendants, after which she continues her journey, eventually making it to her destination. Once there, she's greeted by her older sister, who had believed her to have been slain. Uriarna decides that she will continue to operate under the guise of her death, and eventually negotiates her way into the elves' favor, who decide to back her in her play for the throne. Like I said before, most of her story does make sense in some small way. I just have a few questions. Why did she want everyone to continue thinking she was dead? I'd assume it had something to do with attempting to keep Sect from interfering with her plots and schemes, but if everyone believes her to be dead, wouldn't they send another delegation to negotiate with the elves? Also, under whose authority does she make these promises to said elves? Her father seems to think she's dead, as far as I know, and I don't know about him, but if I heard blank checks were being written in the name of my dead daughter, I would be more than concerned. It's lingering questions like these that make me feel like the political aspects of Skeleton Knight's story are just somewhat half-baked, and I feel like that's primarily due to its 12-episode run instead of a 24-episode run. Now, I haven't read the light novels or the manga, so I don't necessarily know how this plays out in either of them, but it seems like a lot of it may have been cut, because while watching, I initially was excited and interested to figure out what was happening in this world and how exactly these policies were going to be enacted and all sorts of stuff. I am intrigued by the political side of things, similar to how I do actually really love the political side of Overlord, with the Golden Princess abolishing slavery and the different factions within the kingdom. But in Skeleton Knight, it feels like I'm only getting half of the story, and later on, when I do get answers to some of my questions, they just feel obtuse, like things would happen no matter what if people did or didn't interfere, and I just feel uncomfortable about that. Now, however half-baked this side of the story might be, I actually do enjoy Ark's adventures with Ariane. I find her quest to abolish the slave trade refreshing, as more often than not, isekai protags choose to partake in rather than do something about the slave trade. But that's not to say that the story is all doom and gloom. No, on the contrary, it's often fun and hilarious. This is in large part due to Ark's boundless optimism, but is also due to the series' impeccable sense of comedic timing. In fact, I don't know if I've ever watched a show that could juggle such rough subject matter while also making me laugh on a near constant basis. It achieves this by taking what would be high-stress situations that would force normal characters into a psychotic rage and instead responding with comedy. The same situation that plays out in Sword Art Online's infamous Taboo Index episode, which forced Yu-Gi-Oh to break the code that bound him and carve his enemies, in Skeleton Knight is instead responded to with a plethora of well-placed kicks. I also would be remiss to not bring up the voice cast in Skeleton Knight. Now, I'm not usually someone who notices worthwhile performances specifically within anime. I don't know why. Maybe it has something to do with the disconnect between hearing an actor's voice versus seeing their face, or maybe it has something to do with there only being like 4 voice actors that actually do the English dub. But more recently, due to Billy Kometsu's tragic passing and the recasting of Naofumi Iwatani, I've become much more aware as to what a great performance can do for my enjoyment of a series. Specifically, I have to commend Brandon Johnson's portrayal of Ark. The way he constantly vacillates between Ark's holy knight persona and his inner gamer monologue is fantastic. The way he conveys boundless joy is astounding, and I just love him, so leave me alone about it.
What a hole! Do-do-do-do! Ark found a gold bar.
All right.
Really, the only other notable performance I'd like to bring up is Caitlin Glass as Ariane. You might know her as Winry from Full Metal Alchemist. I think she does a really great job, but like I said earlier, I'm not super well versed on voice acting, so I'm not gonna say too much about it. I enjoy both the performances, and I think they do a really good job. The fact that somebody actually voices Ponta, I think, is pretty hilarious, because they're mostly just like, yeah, but that's pretty funny. Now, outside of that, I think this perfectly leads me into what I believe Skeleton Knight's greatest asset is: Ark. Honestly, I had no idea how much I needed someone like Ark in my life until now. Unlike your usual isekai protagonist, Ark isn't an intellectual, a stoic badass, or even a NEET. He's just a guy who loves fantasy and is happy to be able to experience as much of it as possible. I think the reason that he resonates with me so much is I believe that's how I would be in this situation. Granted, as I said in my Log Horizon video, I'd be a little bitch about it for quite a while, but once I realized how lucky I was, I believe I'd react in much a similar way as Ark does. He's so excited to experience everything that this new world has to offer, from its cuisine to its merchandise and even its monsters. Each and every bend in his path is met with a sense of excitement just to be a part of it, and I love it. It fills me with a sense of pure joy that I don't think I've felt since I was a kid getting up early on Saturday mornings to watch Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. The next character I want to talk about is Ark's Spirit Fox companion Ponta. Now, needless to say, you could put a cute ass fox in anything and I'll instantly like it. Human Centipede, boom, favorite movie. Black Summoner, boom, favorite anime. Hell, I'd even relish the sweet sting of tearing off a hangnail if I got to pet Ponta afterwards. But outside of that, within the confines of this world, Ponta acts as a sort of badge that proves the content of Ark's character to others. More often than not, when Ark meets someone new, they respond with hostility, as humans are the racial equivalent to a big bag of dicks. No matter how nice he may be, the majority of this world's non-human denizens refuse to trust him. At least that is until they see Ponta and are lured into a stupor by her cuteness. But in all seriousness, Ponta really adds to Skeletal Knight's overall feeling of fun and good humor. She's always down to overindulge just like Ark, and watching how Ariane specifically interacts interacts with her is hilarious. She breaks down her walls with sheer cuteness, and I love it. The other two major characters outside of Ark and Ponta are Ariane and Chiome. I don't really want to go too far into Ariane's character, as much of the season's story is about her development, and Chiome is barely touched on outside of being a fuzzy-tailed ninja. So I really can't say anything about her, and it seems like the majority of her story is being saved for a possible sequel. The last thing I want to talk about is the art direction in Skeletal Knight. Once again, this is something I don't usually bring up because I know very little about animation, but I'm actually surprised at how good the series tends to look. Usually when a series primarily uses CG to model their MC, you think it's going to look like Berserk 2016, but that's not true for Ark. I believe it has something to do with the fact that he doesn't really have facial features or hair and is usually just depicted as a hulking suit of armor, but he more often than not looks pretty great. Now the same can't be said about Ponta and Ariane. Every time the show cuts to a wide shot, I wanna die. They just look so bad. I know that CGE helps you cut down on production costs, but come on, I can't. Overall, I think Skeletal Knight in Another World is a testament to how a great protagonist can really bring together your story. And while I've said many a bad thing about Skeletal Knight in this video, I came away from the show with a smile on my face and excitement for a possible second season. But I hope it gets a full 24 episode run, because 12 is far too few to include a complex political storyline. Also, if the series continues to use assault as a plot device, I will drop it faster than Barry Allen climaxes. So that's the video. Once again, kind of a short one, but considering the anime is roughly half the length of its contemporaries, I'm actually pretty proud that I've managed to talk about it for this long. Are you gonna watch Skeleton Knight in Another World? If you already have, what did you think about it? Put all of your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below, and while you're at it, why not like this video and subscribe to the channel for more awesome isekai content. But as always, I've been That Isekai Guy. Now go watch some anime.